Okay, now that I'm done being childish, let's actually have a relatively sensible conversation about the current state of the UK classic car market. Because if you are looking at buying a classic car, um, you're probably going to look at what's available in the UK first before you consider buying anything from abroad. Because obviously, if it's right on your doorstep, it's going to be a lot easier to go and view the car, check it's all right, check it's what you want to buy. But unfortunately, the current state of the UK classic car market isn't particularly brilliant. And that's probably down to a few reasons. Firstly, simply people don't have any money. Um, Living in the UK at the moment is pretty tough. You look at the price of some things in supermarkets, and you just go, "What on earth? How? Why is that so expensive?" When I was a child, that never used to be so expensive. Why is it twice the price? Um, and naturally, you can't eat a classic car. It's a luxury. So people are more interested in putting food on the table, rightly so. I think that the second main problem with the UK classic car market is that there are an awful lot of people who, a lot like the dealers in the US, they try and sell the cars for sort of vastly inflated sums. Um, I've sort of lost count of how many rebuilt Mustang projects I've seen on sellers groups on Facebook or even on eBay where they'll take a Mustang. Um, and don't get me wrong, rebuilding a car can be really expensive. But they'll take a Mustang and they'll be asking absolutely crazy money for it. Like, oh, I've got a fastback Mustang. I've done X, Y, and Z to it. I now want £60,000, and it's absolutely bonkers. Firstly, I don't think many people really have 60 grand knocking around at this time. I mean, I certainly don't because no one's buying my OnlyFans. And then I think the whole issue is exacerbated by, oh, I know what I've got. It's worth this much. I'm not going to sell it for a penny less. Those kind of people who just, I don't know, obviously dropped on their heads as kids and they just can't seem to listen to any sort of reason. It's also not helped by the fact that the car's probably got quite a basic spec as well. You know, it's very original. Oh yes, it's got a 289 and it's got a 3-speed like it came with from the factory. And I'm like, well, where's the rest of this money that you're paying for? What's it going towards? It's still got original drum brakes, still has a relatively original 289 with a 3-speed automatic. And in the modern day and age, there are much better things than a 3-speed automatic knocking around. Um, and if it's just a stock 289, you could have at least upgraded it, put a cam in it, put some new heads on it, etc., etc. Not necessarily fuel injection, but that might be nice. So you do kind of sit there and look at these cars and go, well, is that really worth 60 grand? No, I, I don't think so, really. I think there are much better deals on the market. So these people try and sell like vastly inflated cars. I think they have a lot to answer for because people see those and they just get put off immediately. So this kind of brings me on to my next point, why I chose to import this 57 Chevy pickup truck. There aren't really that many available in the UK, but the ones that are available, people kind of want silly money for them. I think the cheapest one that I saw, well, the guy wanted £10,000 for it. Yes, it had a V8, it had a 327, but it needed quite a fair bit of welding. Um, it wanted rear cab corners. It wanted, I think, driver side sill doing. I think there was a hole in one of the bottom fenders. Um, the brakes didn't work, so it wanted a new Mars cylinder. Probably wanted new brake lines. Um, and that's not a small amount of work. Yeah, you can get the patch panels fairly cheaply, but if you can't do it yourself and you need someone else to weld it, that's an awful lot of money in terms of labour. So you're looking £10,000 plus everything else you need to get it running and driving. So before you know it, you might have spent another £2,000 on it, and that's I didn't really think that was a great price. So this is where my 57 sort of comes into the mix, because I saw this advertised on, I think it was Car and Classic, and it was literally half the price of the one that I saw in the UK. And being that it's coming from California, it was virtually rust free. Obviously, all the paintwork, so the clear coat, all the original paint had pretty much, been destroyed by the sun. But it's usually sort of salted roads that absolutely destroy these cars. So in the UK, a classic car would literally just melt if it's not properly protected. It didn't need. I don't think it really needs any welding at all. All the cab corners, fine. All the sills, fine. The sort of lower door hinges where these trucks tend to rust out, they were fine. So compared to the one in the UK, it was half the price, and it didn't need any of the welding. And even better, no one had started molesting it yet, tearing it to bits. So I paid just under £5,000 to have it, to buy the actual truck. And then I paid an extra £750 for a brand new rebuilt 4-bolt 350, never even been broken in yet, with a turbo 350 transmission, which I do like to slate at times, but for that kind of price, you really can't argue with it. And that's coming from a man who is literally tighter than a duck's arse. You have to literally pry my wallet open with a crowbar. Yeah, so in total I paid £5,500 for it. That's before shipping, anything like that. So £5,500 for the truck, with a new 350 engine, a rebuilt turbo 350. I've also got some window glass with a smashed passenger side window. Got a new front bumper. Got some other bits and bobs. So yeah, all in all, I paid, nearly less than half the cost of the one that I saw in the UK. So in terms of shipping, you have a fair few options. So you can literally book your vehicle onto a Roro. So that's a picture of the Roro there. Literally drive it on. It doesn't go in an ISO or anything. Literally drive it on, and then the stevedores will just clamp it to the deck, make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And that's usually like the cheapest form of moving a car. Not terribly sure how much that costs off the top of my head, because that's not the option I went with. Next sort of least expensive, next option in terms of pricing is like a shared container. So sometimes you get like a 40-foot container, and obviously if your car's small enough, then you can fit 2 cars into a 40-foot container. And again, they're lashed down, made sure they don't fly anywhere. And then the most expensive option, which is what I went for, simply because I thought the truck's in pretty good shape. Yeah, the paintwork obviously needs looking at, but all the body panels are straight. It's not been an accident. It's not been bumped and dinged and crashed into by Maureen at the local supermarket with a bloody shopping trolley. So I thought, if I can get this truck back to the UK in one piece, it will probably be a good one to repaint. So I went with a 20-foot ISO. So just my truck in the ISO. And from Los Angeles to Southampton, that cost me £3,500 for a single ISO, just my truck. So other things that you have to consider when you purchase shipping is, does that include freight handling as well? Does that include freight forwarding? Because it was already included in the price that the car will be transported from wherever I bought it in Los Angeles to the port. Um, Depending on who you buy your shipping with, that may or may not be included. Um, and again, they might charge a further freight handling fee when it gets to the UK or even at the port. So I think the freight handling fee for me was about £450 um, when it arrives in the UK, and that essentially includes the company moving it from the container and then applying for the NOVA, the notification of vehicle arrival, um, which is what you have to do when it arrives in the UK. There's no way of getting around that, of course, unless you don't want to register it. But then, no, not really any point in that. So all in all, once you've actually paid for the truck, um, once you've paid for shipping, once you've paid for it to be transported to the port, all the freight handling fees, um, whatnot, I ended up paying £9,775, which is just shy of about $13,000. And no doubt some Americans watching this are probably going, bloody hell, that's expensive. I could pick one of those trucks up for. And yeah, I'm sure you can in the United States, but in the UK, obviously they're quite scarce. So even the relatively cheap ones that want a lot of work, start at around sort of 13 to 14,000. But with all the extra bits and bobs that I bought, um, especially the 350 engine, because trying to buy like a new rebuilt 4-bolt mains 350 block in the UK, that'll easily set you back like £3,000 to £4,000, depending on spec. So already you're looking at quite a lot of money just for the engine. And of course, price of shipping's gone up in the last few years, so that's kind of made it more expensive to import one. But it's a truck that's practically rust-free. It's been unmolested, um, and I think it's a good deal. So in total, for purchasing the truck, purchasing the shipping, all the freight handling costs, and the import duty, which is 5%, on classic vehicles, I paid a total of £9,775 to get it from Los Angeles in the US to Southampton. Now, obviously, probably going to have it transported, so again, that'll be another fee. But just to get it into the country, um, it was slightly cheaper than buying a pretty battered one that needed quite a lot of work in the UK, which is why I think it's good value for money, because it doesn't really need any welding. It's been unmolested. It's never encountered any sort of salted roads, anything like that. And with all the extras that I got with it, the 350 crate engine, those are really expensive in the UK. Like you'll struggle to find a brand new engine that's a 4-bolt main in the UK for probably under, I don't know, £4,000, which again, to a lot of Americans, that's probably totally bonkers, but they don't just grow on trees around here. So, with the engine, all the extra bits and bobs, it's really quite a bargain compared to, what is actually knocking about in the UK. Anyway, if you're still awake at this point, thanks for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, send it to your grandma so she can watch it and fall asleep at night time as well. Once the truck actually arrives, I'm going to do like a whole video series on it. So we'll go through like registration, what my plans are, etc.